A very good evening to you out there, and welcome to Nationwide on the network service of the NTA. I am Lydia Odiji-Ochi with the news. Thanks for joining us. We now begin with a little bit of politics. The APC governorship candidate in the upcoming Edo State elections, Pastor Osagie Izeyamo, says if elected, he would give priority to improving security situation in Edo State. Speaking on Good Morning Nigeria, Pastor Izeyamo hints on improving security funding and aggregation of vigilante groups as some measures to tackle insecurity in Edo State. He joined other guests on the program. Daniel Adere has more.
Not give the Edo State Police Command 5 million naira and expect any serious result in terms of handling security challenges. So we intend to improve on the funding to our security agencies. We intend to identify routes, strategic economic routes that link communities, that will carry food from the rural areas to the urban areas. And we are going to immediately work on them.
The All Progressives Congress governorship candidate for the Edo 2020 governorship election, Pastor Osagie Izeyamo, who joined the program from the Benin studio, used the opportunity to reel out a simple agenda ahead of the polls, which he says already resonates with the Edo people. Meanwhile, political analysts on the program call for ideology rather than interest-based political structures.
What politicians ought to do within the framework of Nigerian politics is to maintain political ideology and have the services of their people at heart first, not actually their own interest.
My worry is that agents of political parties have been reduced to one each for collection centers. I'm worried. Are they properly trained? Do they know what to look out for? You see, because they spend so much time and energy in campaign that nobody actually takes time to teach the agents who will be your eyes and ears on the field, the things to look out for.
They urged all security agencies in the state to up their game ahead of the elections to forestall any eventuality of electoral malpractice or politically induced violence. In Abuja, Daniel Adiriyi, NTA.
Transparency and accountability remain key in running the affairs of the Operation Safe Corridor. This was made known when the United Nations Resident and Humanitarian Coordinator visited the De-radicalization, Rehabilitation and Reintegration Camp, Malam Sidi Gombe State. Nafisa Umar Garba reports.
The essence of the visit is to synergize with the de-radicalization, rehabilitation and reintegration program to make an impact on the ex-combatants through quality improvement, since they are into various skills acquisition, so as to give them access to a better market. The United Nations Resident and Humanitarian Coordinator, Edward Callon, also commended the activities of the Operation Safe Corridor in peace building and investing hubs that will bring harmony, especially in the Northeast region.
According to the General, about 17 ministries, departments and agencies are involved in this. So, I mean, listen, these guys have brought on board the global best practices in dealing with this. Whatever is going to be new is going to be very small. It will only be focused on quality improvement, and that's it.
According to the coordinator, Operation Safe Corridor, Major General Bamidele Shafa, the program has recorded successes which added values to humanity toward ensuring that the ex-combatant becomes productive members of the society. He explained that the success made have drawn other countries' representatives to adopt the model.
We have a standing account to them, which the cost of treatment is charged to Operation Safe Corridor. So we believe that is our contribution to civil society in order to continue to derive their support and cooperation.
The UN team was conducted round the camp to see the impact made so far. Nafisa Umar Garba, NTA News.
And now to protecting the education sector from attacks. The COVID-19 pandemic offers an opportunity for federal and state governments to build a resilient education system that can withstand future shocks. On the occasion of the first International Day to Protect Education from Attacks, stakeholders want government to prioritize school safety. Kelvin Ebonaye reports.
Protecting education, save a generation is the theme for the first International Day to Protect Education from Attack. There has never been a bigger threat to safe and accessible education for children than the challenge posed by COVID-19, and in the northeastern part of Nigeria, conflicts arising from insurgency. With around 46 million primary and secondary learners across Nigeria kept at home due to COVID-19 related school closures, an immediate pandemic response plan is needed, particularly for schools in communities.
If we're taking the risk in other sectors, I think we should also be bold enough to take the risk in the educational sector. What is important is for us to sustain the awareness that we've been doing, but not just sustain the awareness, build knowledge around the awareness. It's a sector that government can never afford to undermine, and that's why we've been agitating for more funding, greater provision of resources.
Since the outbreak of insurgency in the northeastern part of Nigeria, a United Nations data puts the number of damaged schools at around 910. Another 1,500 schools were forced to close, with some 4.2 million children at risk of missing out on education. Situation like this is why UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres is calling on governments around the world to invest in frameworks that will ensure secured environment in which children can learn the skills they need for the future. To deliver for children in Nigeria, stakeholders note that education must remain on top of the public agenda. In Abuja, Kelvin Ewonwaye, NTA News.
Now, let me bring in Ambassador Samson Iteboje in New York via Zoom to speak more on this very special day. He is Nigeria's Deputy Permanent Representative to the United Nations. Ambassador Samson, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Now, what are the challenges that necessitated this proclamation on the 27th of May?
Thank you for having me. Of course, you know, education is a fundamental right for every child. And we all know the importance of education, and that cannot be overemphasized. We know, too, that without education, a lot of sectors of any country will be affected, be it development, health, mortality rate, quality governance, crisis, environment. All this will have a trashing if you don't get education right. As if that is not enough, we are beginning to have situations where there are attacks on schools, just like the reporter just mentioned. And in the past, let's say about 5 years now, we've had about 75,000 attacks on education, on institutions of learning all over the world. And we have over 200 million school children that are out of school. So then, to crown it all, we have situations where countries are using educational institutions for military purposes. So this has become a big problem for the world, and that is why there was that necessity to institute a resolution that would declare the 9th September of every year as International Day to Protect Education from Attack.
It's okay. Now, can it be said that lack of or total absence of sanctions is responsible for incessant attacks on education facilities, students and teachers? What is your take?
Yes, I agree with you. It is actually part of the problem, because you have situations where those who commit these crimes, they go scot-free, and it also has to do with the terrain. For example, we were talking about Nigeria now. Those terrorists that are perpetrating the act of attacks on schools in the Northeast, it's been difficult to get them, to bring them to book. But the world is not resting on its oars. There are various instruments that have been put in place so that once these perpetrators are caught, then they'll be brought to book.
Okay. Now, how can world leaders optimally address this menace, particularly with the threat of COVID-19 on the sector?
Yes, that is why this resolution has come into being, to amplify the need for world leaders to secure institutions of learning, to observe and maintain the fundamental rights of every human being to education. And then I must confess that there are other drivers of conflict, drivers that enable attacks on schools. For example, if you have a government that is run that lacks inclusion, that does not uphold the rule of law, which is the supremacy of the law and the absence of arbitrariness, that does not really address poverty, that does not address unemployment, then we're going to continue to have problems where people resort to this kind of issues, and then they begin to attack schools and they get indoctrinated into terrorist activities.
Okay. Nigeria is set to gradually reopen schools amidst COVID-19, coupled with security challenges in some parts of the country. Now, how best can key players safely reopen schools to build a resilient education system?
Thank you. First of all, we must follow science. I must be very frank that I'm impressed with the work that the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 has been doing. They've been doing a good job. We must follow their dictates. Whatever they tell us to do, we have to do. We also need to put in place safety tests and safety protocols to ensure that our teachers and children are protected from this virus. Like, you know, if they can, we maintain social distance, protective devices like face masks. We have sanitizers in our school, and we're happy. We are recording less numbers now in Nigeria. I would say that it is not yet Uhuru. We must continue to ensure that we obey whatever instructions that are given to us by the Presidential Task Force.
Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us on Nationwide. Thank you indeed.
Thank you so much.
Yes. We've been talking with Ambassador Samson Itoboje, Nigeria Deputy Permanent Representative to the United Nations. Now, we're going to join Michael in Lagos for the inauguration of Task Force on Human Trafficking, and more stories from Lagos. Over to you, Michael.
Thank you, Lydia. As part of efforts to stem the rising trend in the transnational crime of human trafficking, as well as ensuring that existing legal and institutional measures to protect individuals from the crime are adequately implemented, Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu has inaugurated a task force on human trafficking at the Lagos State Government House, Ikeja. Nosa Usula reports.
Human trafficking is a form of modern-day slavery. It involves the illegal trade of people for exploitation or commercial gain, and according to the International Labour Organization, forced labor in the private economy generates $150 billion in illegal profits per year. Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu charged members of the Lagos State Task Force on Human Trafficking to come up with brilliant ideas, innovations and policies that will assist the state government in curbing the menace.
The pandemic will be an easy excuse for some of the people to either get very lured into it very quickly, or they will claim that they needed that economic, independence for them to get into what they're doing. So this task force is more now than ever before important, and it's critical that we get it right all of the time.
The Director General of NAPTIP explained that the problem of human trafficking and irregular migration have become a great national concern, especially with the large number of Nigerians trapped in sexual and labor exploitation in various African and European countries, apart from the hundreds that continue to die in the Sahara Desert and the Mediterranean Sea.
Last year, reports emerged about human farms in some parts of Libya, where black African migrants are allegedly kept in cages like animals, and organs like eyes, kidneys, and lungs are harvested to service the medical sectors of Europe.
Lagos State Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice, who is the chairman of the Task Force on Human Trafficking, assured Governor Sanwo-Olu and NAPTIP that his team will work tirelessly to fight the menace and ensure that people feel the impact of the task force in the states. In Lagos, Nosa Usula, NTA News.
In the same vein, the memory of the victims of enslavement in St. Dominic in 1791 and the slave trade era have been honored as the world-marked International Day for Remembrance of the Slave Trade and its Abolition. Joyken Abakoya has details of the event by the Center for Black and African Arts and Civilization, CBAC, in Lagos.
Many years after its abolition, enslavement of people is still being practiced around the world, and most of the victims are Black Africans.
Different sources reveal that over 40 million people are in some form of slavery or the other.
Guest lecturer, head Department of History, Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, Adetunji Ogunyemi, who spoke on the causes, forms, and consequences of contemporary enslavement, said the value put on human trafficking is not less than $150 billion.
It has become the duty of sovereign states to ensure that their citizens are not enslaved. In Nigeria, for example, there is a law, a federal law, which outlaws trafficking in persons.
It is for this reason that CBAC has mobilized and sought the participation of the youth in this webinar to create the more needed awareness among the youth.
Other speakers call for deliberate efforts and interventions by government to reduce the risks youths face in the search of the golden fleece abroad.
We can solve it from home, from the religious angle, to which is very, 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 very serious.
The 23rd of August every year is set aside by the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, to remind the world about the tragedy of the slave trade and the urgency to end the modern-day version. In Lagos, Joyken Abakoya, NTA News.
It's time for us to go on our first break, and when we return, Abdurrahman Usman Jubrila in Sokoto will take us through stories from that zone.
Good afternoon and welcome to Sokoto. Flood has destroyed hundreds of houses and farmlands following a heavy downpour in Anka and Gumi local government areas of Zamfara State. Officials of the State Emergency Management Agency are assessing the level of damage done by the incident for possible intervention. Sadia Abubakar Tunau reports.
The heavy downpour that lasted for several hours destroyed many houses and farmlands, thereby rendering hundreds of households homeless. The devastating effect of the flood is, however, more visible in areas that are close to rivers, but no human life was lost to the incident. Zamfara State Commissioner of Information and Culture, Suleiman Tuno, who went round some of the affected areas in Anka town, described the incident as an act of God and prayed Allah to avert its reoccurrence. He, however, expressed concern over the indiscriminate building on waterways by some members of the community, saying the trend must be checked to save lives and properties of the citizenry. Similar incident was also recorded in Gumi and Bukuyum local government areas of the state. Meanwhile, officials of the Zamfara State Emergency Management Agency have embarked on assessment of the affected communities for possible intervention. In Gusau, Sadia Abubakar Tunau, NTA News.
More local government areas in Kebbi State have continued to submit to flooding. Worst hit are residential buildings and farmlands. Usman Abdullahi Shehu reports.
Kebbi State is one of the states affected the most by flood disaster this year, with 100 communities devastated and hundreds of thousands hectares of farmland in over 11 local government of the state submerged, thereby destroying crops worth millions of naira and threatening the national quest for food security. Jega and Kalgo local government areas are some of the new areas hit by the flood recently. Some affected persons described the flood as the most devastated ever witnessed in the area. Hundreds of households are now displaced as their homes are submerged in Mana, Sagi, Bakingulubi, all in Jega town. Adding that, other 13 communities that live along the river in the local government have also been affected.
Gehuru, Kato Alelu, Kato Kimba, Kagangaro, Kato Najega, Kawuche Gindi, Kate Dangamaji, Kawuche Binnemadi, Dusune, Wenda, Wanan, Ambale Road Tashawa.
To Allah Kadrada, Nialani. So that's what I can do.
Also in Jega, the only bridge linking Kebbi, Sokoto and Niger State is threatened by the volume of the flood. The story is also similar in Kalgo town, the headquarters of Kalgo local government. As at the time of filing in this report, affected household members were seen salvaging some properties from their flooded homes as the water continued advancing. Some farmers were also seen harvesting millet from their flooded farms. In Birnin Kebbi, Usman Abdullahi Shehu, NTA News.
That's it from Sokoto. It's back to Lydia in Abuja for continuation of Nationwide. Good afternoon.
Many thanks. We still have more on the devastating effects of flood. It is work in progress on Rigachukun Bridge along Kaduna Zaria Highway. Abdullahi Mohammed reports that the project managers have concentrated on refilling the transition base of the bridge, which first caved in about 2 weeks ago.
It would be recalled that a couple of hours after reopening the Rigachukun Bridge following remedial works, the transition base caved in again. This sent a signal to the engineers that they are dealing with a case that deserves more than the usual. So they teamed up and concentrated their energy on fixing the troublesome transition base, which has now become a bitter pill. With a total excavation of the wet soil, boulders and concrete were brought in and gradually been laid to form a new formidable base.
What we are doing now is to go to the bottom of the deck of the abutment, beneath it, beside the embankment there. We want to build it from the base. We are using boulders so that we stabilize it, so that by the time we do it, any vehicle passing, there will be no extra that will cause any settlement again.
But that is also at the expense of the alternative bridge, which is also in dire need of attention. Its two transition bases are threatened, especially as it now carries the load of traffic plying the highway in and out of the city of Kaduna. The good news, however, is that a permanent solution awaits the two bridges.
You may not appreciate the magnitude of threat to this bridge until you find your way under it. A part of it, which looks like its stabilizer, has already given way. But in the words of the federal controller here in Kaduna, a permanent solution is coming soon. That is reassuring. In Kaduna, Abdullahi Mohammed, NTA News.
Many thanks, Abdullahi, for that update. It is the end of the road for wanted Tewasi Agwaza, popularly known as Ghana, and some of his cohorts in notorious crimes as 4 Special Forces military operation killed the suspect along Makudi Boko Road in Benue State. At a press conference in Doma, Commander of the Forces Major General Maude Gadzama said Ghana was killed in a firefight.
Gentlemen of the press, here lies the terrorists that have been terrorizing the entire northern region of the North Central and have made it untenable for peace-loving Nigerians of Benue and Taraba extractions to live in peace. As you can see, the popularly known Ghana lies.
Construction works resume at the Federal Secretariat Complex in Lafia of Nasarawa State following approval of additional funding by the Federal Executive Council to the project abandoned 11 years ago. Ben Mitu has an update.
Like most state capitals, Lafia is hosting many federal government ministries, departments and agencies. But since creation in 1996, most of them have been operating in rented apartments at different locations of the town. Following the approval for resumption of work by the federal government, contractor has mobilized men and machines back to site. The landscaping is taking the lead and other construction work. This is the Federal Secretariat in Lafia, and with the progress of work now, in no distant time, federal government workers will soon resolve the issue of office accommodation. Although the site manager declined comments, it is work in progress. Attempts to get comments from the new Federal Controller of Works or any federal civil servant were not successful, but some residents say when completed, the new edifice will put to rest office accommodation challenges of federal government establishments.
Whichever department you want to
have any business with, in the state. You just have to go to the fire secretariat and then you can easily locate whichever ministry you want to have any business with them.
That will open more opportunities for businesses and all these things to thrive around the environment.
It would be recalled that 2 weeks ago, the federal government directed for the completion of federal secretariats in some states, including the one in Nasarawa. In Lafia, Ben Mitu, NTA News.
The resumption of airline operations after 5 months of COVID-19 shutdown is gradually unlocking the huge economic potentials in the nation's aviation industry and reviving the social benefits inherent in the sector under the new normal. Abubakar Usman Akwanga reports that guests on NTA Current Affairs program Tuesday Live expressed optimism on some of the practical measures taken by key players in the industry to entrench a new era of steady economic recovery and growth plan in the sector.
Shutdown of airline operations to contain spread of the ravaging coronavirus pandemic no doubt incurred huge losses to the aviation industry globally, with prevailing consequences on domestic economy and growth of foreign investment profile. These critical players in the industry say effective collaboration and strict implementation of post-COVID-19 policy frameworks and strategies will serve as immediate and long-term measures in reviving the sector.
The more aircraft in the air, the more fund is making money, the more NCA is making money, the more NAMA is making money, the more the industry is booming. And that is where fund can get money to develop the sector.
Aviation is very critical to everything the country stands for. In terms of economic growth, job creation, every major element of economic growth is tied to aviation.
Guests say sustainable efforts in repositioning Nigerian airports and the resumption of international flights will open a new vista for increased commercial activities and improved gross domestic product.
The last few weeks has been very good. No negative reports from any of our airports, and the protocols are working very fine. We just keep monitoring. We have an enforcement department working around the terminals, but we don't seem to be getting any negative results of recent.
And we are trying to see how we can use legislation to support the industry so that the industry will be free for everybody, especially the middle class, because the middle class drives the economy.
As conversations continue to flourish on the future of the industry after the resumption of operations, stakeholders remain focused that the national aviation sector will witness more gains than it has lost in the last few months. In Abuja, Abubakar Usman Akwanga, NTA News.
A high-powered National Steering Committee for the preparation of the medium-term national development 2021 to 2025, as well as Agenda 2050, has been inaugurated. President Muhammadu Buhari, who performed the ceremony, described the task as vital to the transformation of the nation's economic fortunes beyond Vision 2020 and the ERGP.
We are continuity and efficiency in our development planning. It has become necessary to develop successor plans to the Nigerian Vision 2020 and the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, which both lapsed in December this year. The main objectives of these successor plans are to lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty within the next 10 years, particularly given the World Bank's projection that Nigeria will become the world's third most populous country by 2050, with over 400 million people. At the heart of the successor plans is a partnership between the public and private sectors, with government as an enabler of private sector investment and industry. The successor plans must, therefore, be designed to sustain national development as well as support our regional and global strategic interests as outlined in the African Union Agenda 2063, the ECOWAS Integration Agenda 2050 and the Sustainable Development Goals 2030.
The committee is to be co-chaired by the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning and Mr. Atedo Peterside, representing the private sector. It's now time to join Doris in Port Harcourt for more trending stories. Hello, Doris.
Welcome to Port Harcourt. Good evening. Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike has reiterated his commitment to the welfare workers in the state. He stated this while reacting to the suspended protests. Ogedi Nyekwere reports.
Some of the contending issues that necessitated the planned protests, which include minimum wage adjustment, payment of health workers' outstanding salaries, unsealing of the NLC State Secretariat, were amicably resolved, hence the immediate suspension of the industrial action. The governor says he is elated that the issues did not degenerate to crisis, stressing that his administration is not in conflict with organized labor.
If we are sealing up Labor Congress Secretariat, why are we not sealing up the one of the TUC? So it doesn't make sense. They are working together. But the ministry, special projects that handle that project, came up that there was a defect and it needs to be remedied. We don't want a situation with the collapse of building and loss of lives. On the issue of Jesu, so can forgiving them, pay them the 2 months salary that they went on strike. And they talk about check dues. And so now we have to look at, and we make sure that henceforth, government will be deducting their members by the parent salary, they deduct it and renew to you. But what is important for you to know, government owes no obligation, no law says I must be a tax collector.
He reiterated that his administration will continue to do its best to meet the demands and welfare of the state workforce while also remaining labor-friendly. In Port Harcourt, Ogedi Nyekwere, NTA News.
Candidate for this year's Junior West African Examination Council in Rivers State joined their counterparts across the country for the examination. Commissioner for Education Professor Kaniye Ibeko inspected various centers in the state and most importantly, enforcement of COVID-19 safety protocols. Jenny Bassi reports.
They all complied with the COVID-19 measures like the use of face masks and maintaining of social distance. As part of efforts to affirm strict compliance with COVID-19, the Commissioner for Education, Professor Kaniye Ibeko, went around various centers to monitor the conduct of the examination. His first port of call was the Custodian Center, where school officials were seen selecting and collecting sensitive papers to their centers. Professor Ibeko expressed satisfaction with the conduct of the examination, noting that everything has been put in place to ensure hitch-free examination in the state.
The process is seamless and smooth. I'm happy, what I've observed so far, and this is what I want to see, that we don't have complaints in terms of shortages or materials and what have you. We're happy that this is not happening. Everybody's happy, and we're expecting that the exams will come and go smoothly.
The exam is going on well. There is no problem. The children are wearing their nose masks. Our teachers, everybody, and the company is very clean.
The JSS3 examination will last for 1 week. In Port Harcourt, Jenny Bassi, NTA News.
That's our beat from Port Harcourt. We will take a break to join Larry in our Ibadan Network Center.
Thank you, Doris, and welcome to Ibadan. The federal government is collaborating with Kogi State to further harness the agricultural potential of the state by expanding its agricultural value chain development program. Lekon Agbode tells us more.
The federal government promised not to renege in its determination towards diversification of the economy by making agriculture pivotal. This stern determination informed collaboration with state governments, encouraging them to explore areas of comparative advantage with IFAD and Value Chain Development Program, rice and cassava were the agricultural products of focus in Ogun State. The Marketing Enterprising Development Advisor of the program, Ajia Fatima Mukhtar Buhari, was on tour of Ogun State as one of the participating states. The advisor was impressed with the commitment of Ogun State in counterpart funding.
You're putting support to the VCDP, you're adding much value to it to help us achieve what we want to achieve. But we want a continuous release of counterpart funds.
The Deputy Governor further reiterated the determination of the state government to explore all programs that will enhance the economy through agriculture.
Over 12,000 farmers who are participating in this program, and they're cultivating about 7,000 hectares in total for cassava and for rice.
Some local government areas are in the program in Abeokuta, Lekon Agbonde, NTA News.
Moving on to health sector now, the National Association of Resident Doctors, Ibadan chapter, has joined their counterparts nationwide in an ongoing industrial action. Grace Bamidele, however, reports that at the University College Hospital, UCH, Ibadan, patients are being attended to.
It was business as usual at the University College Teaching Hospital, Ibadan, in spite of the resident doctors' indefinite strike to make their demands known. Some medical personnel were seen attending to patients, especially those with critical cases.
Some of them are still around. They are still in hospital. They are attending to critical patients.
The strike by resident doctors is coming after a week-long industrial action which took place 3 months ago.
We're asking the government to provide us with genuine life insurance, group life insurance, so that the families of our fallen heroes, our doctors that have died while combating COVID-19 pandemic, their families can be well catered for.
Members of the National Association of Resident Doctors make up 50 to 60% of the medical workforce. However, since the outbreak of the coronavirus in Nigeria, 14 resident doctors have been lost to the dreaded virus. In Ibadan, Grace Bamidele, NTA News.
We now rejoin our Abuja studios for continuation of Nationwide with Lydia.
The Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC, has announced 296 new cases of COVID-19 in Nigeria as at 8th September 2020. The breakdown shows that Plateau has 183 cases, Lagos 33, FCT 25, Ogun 16, Oyo 7, Ekiti 6, Kwara and Ondo 5 cases each. Others are Anambra, Imo and Nasarawa 3 cases each. Rivers, Gombe and Edo 2 cases each, while Akwa Ibom has 1 case. There are now 55,456 confirmed cases in the country, discharged 43,334 and 1,067 deaths recorded. And our next story says the Nigeria Television Authority, NTA, will partner with organizations that promote the unity and national development of Nigeria. The Executive Director, Engineering, Stephen Moses Okpanachi, who represented the Director General of NTA, Malam Yakubu Ibn Mohammed, made this known when he received the leadership of Kids Code Club Africa. The Kids Code Club Africa is into training, innovations and mentorship program of the African child.
In ICT and technology, and we look at it, how can we contribute to our nation? What can we give to this great nation, Nigeria, and Africa as a whole? So we look at it with our expertise. We say we are going to contribute training our children, picking them early on time, to give them a practical skill on ICT.
You are aware that there is what we call the Executive Order of the President, Executive Order 5, that emphasize and stress the importance of local content. We believe in that, and that is why in NTA Before now, we were using foreign satellites. But today, by the grace of God, we use NICOMSAT, which is the Nigerian satellite communication. So we are going to work closely with you to build capacity, particularly with the children.
The partnership between NTA and Kids Code Club Africa will help contribute to the growth and economy through innovations technologies. Like some great women in the past who stood up against societal ills, the Medical Women's Association and other civil society organizations in Cross River State have taken the campaign against kidnapping in Calabar to the Palace of the Obong of Calabar and the Grand Patriarch of the Efik Kingdom, Edidem Ekpo Okon Abasio II the Fifth. The campaign is to drum the support of traditional institutions to help stem the spate of abductions and restore the state to its peaceful status. Achibong Basi reports.
The capital of Cross River State, which was once known for its peace and aesthetics, is probably becoming a hub for kidnappers who commit their crimes and demand for ransoms before their victims are released. Barely a week after the release of a female medical doctor who was kidnapped, another female medical doctor has been abducted by the hoodlums.
There are women that are picked, people don't know, they don't have a voice. We are coming out to be the voice of the voiceless women.
We are worried because when a woman is taken, it's like the whole family is taken.
And so, in a bid to lend their voices to end this trend of terrorism, which women feel they are now the target for these perpetrators, this protest to the Palace of the Obong of Calabar, Edidem Ekpo Okon Abasio II the Fifth, is to send a strong message to the monarch and the people of the land that this inhumane act should stop.
We are very much in order to come here and appeal to our royal fathers.
The Obong is working hard towards the solution of these things.
The women had earlier staged a walk to the office of the Cross River State Commissioner of Police and the government house in Calabar to ensure that the lives of women in Calabar and the state are secured. In Calabar, Achibong Basi, NTA News.
A ravaging flood has destroyed more than 100,000 hectares of rice, maize and millet farms in Pategi and its environs in Kwara State. Over 3,000 residential buildings are also submerged by the flood, rendering homeless a great number of people, including women and children. Kainde Omolosho reports.
Flooding is not a strange disaster in Pategi, but this time it came like a thief in the night, entering every house, joining people and taking away their belongings. The flood also submerged schools, hospitals and other infrastructure found on its way, including electric poles and pipe-borne water schemes. I'm at the bank of the River Niger, where residents can be seen relocating from where the floods have devastated their residents to the mainland.
But 3,000 buildings have been affected in the entire riverine site. It has increased their poverty level.
This used to be a farmland, but has now been taken over by waters from the River Niger. The flood is so devastating to the extent at which residents have lost valuables worth millions of naira. Baradogi, a settlement 3 kilometers away from Pategi, is submerged. It has wreaked no less havoc on over 100 communities like this. Mohammed Issa is married with 2 wives and 13 children. He has lost all his means of livelihood to the disaster.
Our farm and houses and many things, floods destroy it.
The water is really a big problem for us. The water has affected our houses. All we need now is shelter. We want government to assist us with a permanent shelter. Government should relocate us to better place.
Though no life was lost to the flooding, the people's immediate need is pipe-borne water. They are calling on government to assist in relocating them to another place and dredging of the river, sourcing the flood to prevent future occurrence. Kainde Omolosho, NTA News.
The Action Alliance has elected Emmanuel Ogweri as its candidate for the Imo North Senatorial District by-election, scheduled for October the 31st, 2020. The party's primary election, which took place at Okigwe, was monitored by the Independent National Electoral Commission. Kingsley Ononiwo has details.
2 of 6 aspirants contested the Imo North Senatorial District by-election of Action Alliance. 5 of the aspirants, however, stepped down, resulting in the emergence of Dr. Emmanuel Ogweri as the party's standard bearer. The national chairman, Action Alliance, Adekunle Rufai Omo Aje, urged the electoral umpire to ensure a level playing field for candidates in the senatorial by-election, even as he expresses confidence in the ability of the candidates to effectively represent the senatorial district.
We've gone to that level of checking who have the quality, who have the capacity, both intellectual ability and a good track record.
In his acceptance speech, Dr. Ogweri assured of his commitment to the party and the senatorial district.
I'm prepared in every possible respect.
In Owerri, Kingsley Ononiwo, NTA News.
Before we go, let's take a look at the weather picture. And that concludes Nationwide. Thank you for being a part of it. I am Lydia Odije Ochi. Have a wonderful evening. Goodbye.